The night the Pride Lands went silent was the night Kion realized he could no longer be just a protector. The wind moved through the grass without a single roar answering it. The moon hung heavy over Pride Rock, and for the first time since Scar's shadow faded, fear returned not from enemies beyond the borders, but from doubt within Kion's own heart. Hugh stood at the edge of Pride Rock, looking down at the sleeping lands. Knowing every creature below trusted him, and yet feeling the weight of something far greater than the Lion Guard had ever prepared him for. The roar of the elders rested inside him like a storm waiting to break, but tonight it felt different. Tonight it wasn't power he felt. It was responsibility. Kion closed his eyes and remembered the last words Mufasa's spirit had spoken to him in the clouds. Leadership is not proven in battle alone. Those words echoed now louder than thunder. The Pride Lands didn't need another warrior. They needed a king who could unite, guide, and sacrifice without hesitation. Simba still ruled, strong and wise, but time moved like a star, slow, unstoppable, inevitable. One day, the throne would not be Simba's, and that day, whether ready or not, Kion would have to stand where legends once stood. Below, the Lion Guards slept, unaware of the storm growing inside their leader. Bunga sprawled out without a care in the world, Foolie's tail flicked in restless dreams. Besht breathed deeply with calm strength. No, murmured half-formed warnings, even in sleep. They had followed Kion into fire, shadow, and darkness. But Kion knew something they didn't. Being king would mean leading even when they were gone, even when he stood alone. As dawn approached, Rafiki appeared without a sound, his staff tapping once against the stone. Kion didn't turn. He already knew the mandrill was there. Rafiki rarely came without reason, and never without truth. "You are staring at the future," Rafiki said calmly. "But you are forgetting to see yourself." Kion finally looked at him, eyes heavy. "I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. The words felt like a weakness, but Rafiki only smiled. "Good," Rafiki replied. "A lion who thinks he is ready for everything is the most dangerous king of all." That morning, Simba called Kion before the Pride Lands gathered. The sun rose behind Pride Rock, casting long shadows across the animals assembled below. Kion felt every eye on him, every expectation, every unspoken fear. Simba's voice was steady, but Kion sensed something deeper beneath it. "My son," Simba said, "you have defended these lands with courage and honor. But protecting the Pride Lands and ruling them are not the same." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Kion's heart pounded. Simba continued, "From this day forward, Kion will begin his training not as the leader of the Lion Guard, but as the future king." The words hit harder than any enemy ever had. Kion felt pride surge through him, quickly followed by fear. Training as king meant judgment, sacrifice, and decisions that could change lives forever. This was no longer about fighting evil. This was about choosing between two goods, two evils, or sometimes no right answer at all. The first test came sooner than Kion expected. A drought struck the Outland's edge, pushing herds dangerously close to Pride Lands territory. The elders debated, voices rising with fear and anger. Some demanded the borders be closed. Others warned that turning them away would mean death. Kion listened, silent, as Simba watched him carefully. Then Simba stepped aside. "You decide." Kion froze. His instincts screamed to help, to open the borders without question, but Rafiki's voice echoed in his memory. "Leadership is not proven in battle alone. Opening the borders could save lives, but it could also drain the Pride Lands, weakening everyone. Losing them could protect his own butt at the cost of innocent suffering." Kion swallowed hard and spoke. "We share our water," he said slowly, "but only under watch. We protect our home and our neighbors together. Decision angered some and worried others, but it worked. The herd survived. The Pride Lands endured, and Kion learned his first lesson as a future king. Leadership means carrying blame even when you are right. That night, Kion trained alone. He ran across the plains until his muscles burned, practiced controlled use of the roar until his voice cracked, and replayed every decision in his mind. Strength was easy. Control was not. The roar could solve many problems, but a king who relied on power alone would become a tyrant. Kion forced himself to stop roaring, even when frustration begged him to release it. Days turned into weeks, and the trials grew harder. A dispute between predators and prey tested Kion's ability to remain fair. A challenge from rival lions tested his restraint. Each test carved something new into him, shaping him, humbling him. And through it all, the Lion Guard watched, unsure how to help their leader when the battle was no longer physical. One evening, Fuli confronted him. "You're changing," she said quietly. "You don't run with us anymore." Kion met her gaze, pain flickering in his eyes. "I have too," he replied. "A king can't always fight beside his friends." The words hurt them both, but they were true. Leadership demanded distance, clarity, and sometimes loneliness. Besh tried to remind him of balance. Ono warned him of overthinking, and Bunga tried to make him laugh. But Kion felt the gap growing. Not because he loved them less, but because the crown demanded more than any friendship ever could. Then came the dream. Kion stood alone in the circle of life, the sky dark and heavy. The spirits of the past kings appeared, not just Mufasa, but lions older than memory. Their eyes burned with expectation. "What will you protect?" they asked in one voice. Kion opened his mouth to answer, but no sound came out. He woke in a cold sweat, understanding at last that power without purpose was nothing. Training to be king wasn't about learning how to rule others. It was about learning what he would give up to protect them. As the sun rose, Kion stood taller than he ever had before. The Pride Land stretched endlessly before him, beautiful and fragile. He wasn't king yet, but the path had begun, and there was no turning back. Somewhere beyond the horizon, threats were already forming, waiting to test not his strength, but his soul. And Kion knew one truth with absolute clarity before he could ever wear the crown. He would have to face a challenge that would force him to choose between the Lion Guard he loved and the kingdom he was born to rule. The storm arrived without warning, rolling across the Pride Lands like a living thing. Dark clouds swallowing the sky as thunder echoed through the valleys. Kion stood at Pride Rock as rain began to fall, not seeking shelter, not moving, only watching as the land he loved disappeared beneath sheets of gray. Storms never frightened him before, but this one felt different. It carried tension, unrest, and a sense that something far more dangerous than lightning was approaching. Rafiki's words returned to him again and again. Every king is tested not when peace reigns, but when chaos demands impossible choices. By morning, the damage was clear. The rivers had flooded their banks, the grasslands were torn apart, and worst of all, the borders between kingdoms had been erased. Hyenas from the outlands crossed freely, desperate and hungry, while rogue lions followed the herds into Pride Lands territory. Panic spread faster than fire. Animals gathered in frightened clusters, and for the first time, Kion heard whispers not of hope, but of doubt. Is he ready? He's too young. Simba should never have stepped aside. Simba watched it all in silence. He did not intervene. This was not his test anymore. Kion called a council beneath the shelter of Pride Rock. The Lion Guard stood beside him, but he could feel the difference now. Before, they had stood as warriors awaiting orders. Today, they stood as witnesses, watching to see whether their leader could rise beyond the role they had always known him in. Kion took a deep breath and spoke with a calm he didn't entirely feel. "We will not attack," he said. "We will stabilize the land first. No borders matter if the circle of life collapses." The decision shocked many. Bunga blinked in confusion. Fuli shifted uneasily. Ono tilted his head, calculating. Besht nodded slowly, understanding before the others did. Stabilizing the land meant working with rivals, even enemies, and trusting those who had once tried to destroy everything. It meant risking betrayal for the sake of balance. Kion personally approached the hyena clans, standing before them without the Lion Guard at his side. Gasps rippled through both groups. A future king walking alone into the jaws of old enemies was either the bravest act imaginable or the most foolish. "The storm hurt all of us," Kion said firmly. "If we fight now, we all lose. He'll restore the land, and you will be fed. Betray us, and the roar will answer." The hyenas laughed at first, mocking his confidence. Then they saw his eyes. Not angry, not afraid. Certain. Slowly, agreements were formed. Temporary. Fragile. Necessary. 4 days, Kion worked without rest. He directed rescues, resolved conflicts, and held the Pride Lands together through sheer will. He did not roar once. Not even when challenged. Not even when insulted. Every choice drained him, and every mistake echoed loudly in his mind. A single misjudgment nearly cost a young zebra its life, and the guilt haunted him long after the rescue was complete. That night, exhaustion finally pulled him into sleep, and the spirits returned. This time, they did not speak. They simply showed him Vigien's kings standing alone, surrounded by those they had saved and those they had failed. Kion saw Simba's past, Mufasa's sacrifice, and futures that had never come to be. He understood something terrifying then. Kings are remembered not for their victories, but for the lives they change forever. When Kion woke, he felt older. Not in body, but in soul. The storm's aftermath revealed a deeper threat. Rival lion prides had taken advantage of the chaos, pushing closer to Pride Rock than ever before. Their leader, a massive scarred lion named Kavu, demanded recognition and territory. "Your father is weak," Kavu snarled. "And you are untested. Step aside, cub, or be crushed." The Lion Guard tensed, ready to fight. Kion raised his tail, stopping them. His heart thundered in his chest, but his voice remained steady. "If we fight, the Pride Lands burn," he said. "If we talk, there is a chance." Kavu laughed, but something in Kion's stance made him pause. This was no cub begging for peace. This was a leader willing to risk everything for it. Negotiations were brutal, filled with threats and near violence, but in the end, Kion offered shared hunting grounds beyond the Pride Lands, under strict rules. It was a gamble. A massive one. Simba's eyes narrowed, but he did not interfere. The gamble paid off. Kovu withdrew, grudgingly respectful. Another lesson carved itself into Kion's heart. Sometimes strength is shown by refusing to use it. But victory came with a cost. The Lion Guard began to feel unnecessary. Confined to observation roles, diplomacy escorts, and patrols without combat. They struggled to understand where they fit in this new world. Bunga finally exploded. "You don't need us anymore." He shouted, "You're becoming king without us." The word struck deeper than any claw. Kion wanted to deny it, to say they would always fight together, but he stopped himself. A king's words must be honest, even when they hurt. "I will always need you," he said softly. "But I can't always stand beside you." Silence followed. Painful. Real. That night, Kion stood alone again on Pride Rock, rain clouds clearing to reveal the stars. Simba joined him at last. "You are doing well," Simba said. "But no, this being king will cost you more than you imagine." Kion nodded. He already felt the cost. Friendship strained. Innocence fading. Childhood slipping away with every command he gave. Far beyond the Pride Lands, unseen eyes watched. Forces older than Kion's training, darker than any rival pride, began to stir. The storms were no accident. The unrest was only the beginning. As the wind carried distant roars across the plains, Kion closed his eyes and made a silent vow. He would become the king the Pride Lands needed, even if it meant losing the lion he once was. Because the greatest test was coming, and it would not ask whether he was ready. It would demand everything. Thorning came from the skies. Ono was the first to see it, wings slicing through the air as he rushed back toward Pride Rock. Eyes wide with a fear Kion had never seen in him before. The horizon was wrong. Not dark with storm clouds, not bright with dawn, but twisted, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Kion felt it too, a pressure deep in his chest, heavier than the roar, heavier than fear. This was not a rival pride. This was not hunger or territory. This was something ancient, something patient, something that had been waiting for a king to rise before stepping forward. The Pride Lands gathered again, but this time there was no panic. There was expectation. Every eye turned toward Kion, not Simba. That realization hit him harder than any roar ever could. Without a word being spoken, the kingdom had already chosen who they believed in. Simba stood behind him, silent, proud, and distant in a way that felt final. Kion understood then that training was no longer preparation. It was happening now, in real time, with real consequences. Ono's voice cut through the air. Multiple forces approaching from beyond the Outlands, organized, coordinated. This isn't random. Kion's mind raced. Organized enemies meant leadership on the other side. Someone intelligent. Someone who understood balance well enough to break it. Kion felt anger rising, instinct begging him to roar, to scatter the threat before it could reach the borders. He stopped himself. Power was tempting. Control was necessary. He issued orders calmly. Evacuations first. Young, injured, and elders moved to safe ground. Patrols positioned not for attack, but observation. The Lion Guard looked at him with a mix of pride and sadness. This was no longer their charge to protect him. It feels their role to protect his vision. As night fell, the enemy revealed itself. A coalition of exiled prides, rogue predators, and bitter survivors of past defeats emerged from the darkness. At their center stood a lioness with cold eyes and a voice like stone. Zira's legacy had not died with her. It had learned. It had adapted. The Pride Lands, hoard balance, she called out. Tonight, we take it back. The word stirred unrest among the gathered animals. Balance meant different things to different creatures. Kion stepped forward, heart steady, voice carrying across the plains. Balance isn't taken, he replied. It's protected. And I will protect it. Sa. The confrontation lasted hours without claws ever touching. Arguments clashed harder than bodies. Accusations of injustice, favoritism, and stolen land poured out like poison. Kion listened to all of it. Every word, every wound. This was the part of kingship no roar could fix. History, pain, memory. Then came the demand. Step aside, the lioness said. Let the Pride Lands be ruled by strength alone. Kion felt the circle of life watching him. The spirits, the past, the future. This was the moment his dreams had warned him about. Not a battle of bodies, but of belief. He could refuse and fight. He could roar and win. Or he could risk everything on a truth that could shatter him if rejected. No, Kion said quietly. Strength alone destroys itself. Silence followed. Dangerous. Heavy. Then chaos erupted as factions within the enemy ranks began to argue. Kion had planted doubt. Enough to fracture them. But doubt was unpredictable. Violence exploded without warning. This time Kion roared. Not in rage. Not in fear. In command. The roar of the elders surged across the battlefield. Not to destroy, but to separate, to halt, to force stillness. The ground trembled. The sky answered. Every creature froze, stunned by the precision of it. Kion stood unmoving at its center, eyes glowing, not with power, but purpose. Leave, he commanded. Or be remembered as the ones who chose chaos over life. They left. When the dust settled, cheers did not rise. Relief did not come. What followed was silence and then understanding. Kion had used the roar not as a weapon, but as a boundary. A final lesson revealed itself in that moment. A king does not dominate the circle of life. He defends it from those who would break it. The aftermath was quiet. Too quiet. See, the lion guard approached him slowly. Bunga tried to smile but failed. Fully avoided his eyes. Ono studied him with awe and worry. Besht stepped forward and rested his head against Kion's shoulder. You did it, he said softly. Kion closed his eyes. I almost lost myself, he whispered. That night, the spirits returned one last time before dawn. Mufasa stepped forward, pride and sorrow in his gaze. Chose balance over fear, he said. That choice will define your reign. Kion bowed his head. I'm still afraid, he admitted him. Mufasa smiled gently. Then you will never stop protecting them. As the sun rose, Simba called Kion forward before the Pride Lands one final time. His voice carried strength and acceptance. Time has come, Simba said. Not because you are fearless, but because you are worthy. Kion felt the weight of every lesson, every sacrifice, every quiet moment of doubt settle into something solid within him. He was no longer training to become king. He already was one. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the world was changing, preparing for the reign of a lion who understood that true power was not in the roar, but in the choice to use it only when absolutely necessary. Tree. The dawn that followed felt different from any sunrise the Pride Lands had ever known. Light spilled across the plains, not like warmth, but like a promise finally kept. Animals gathered slowly, quietly, as if afraid to break something sacred. There was no celebration yet, no roar of triumph, only a shared understanding that an era had ended and another had begun. Kion stood at the edge of Pride Rock, the wind brushing through his mane, feeling the full weight of what he had become settle into his bones. This time, when the spirits appeared in the clouds, they did not loom or test him. They simply watched. Mufasa's face was calm, complete. The others stood behind him, fading one by one, their purpose fulfilled. For the first time since childhood, Kion felt truly alone, and strangely at peace with it. Simba approached from behind, his steps slow, deliberate. He looked not like a king surrendering his crown, but like a father witnessing his son surpass him. I used to think being king meant never showing doubt, Simba said quietly. I was wrong. You showed this land something I never could. Kion turned, emotion tightening his chest. Oh, I couldn't have done it without you." Simba smiled. "That's why you did." The ceremony was simple. No roaring crowds, no dramatic proclamations. Rafiki stepped forward, staff tapping once against the stone, eyes bright with pride. As he marked Kion's forehead, the circle of life seemed to breathe as one. The animals bowed not in fear, not in obligation, but in trust. When Kion finally took his place at the peak of Pride Rock, the silence broke into a single unified roar, rising from every corner of the land. King Kion lifted his head, and the sound echoed into the sky. But kingship did not pause the world. It sharpened it. Within days, new challenges emerged. Trade between kingdoms required rebuilding. Old grudges resurfaced without Simba's authority to restrain them. Some creatures tested Kion deliberately, pushing boundaries to see whether the new king would rule with mercy or force. Each decision mattered more than the last. Each word carried weight. Kion learned quickly that being crowned did not mean being finished. The Lion Guard remained at his side, but their roles evolved. They were no longer simply protectors. They became envoys, guardians of balance beyond pride, lands borders, symbols of unity rather than combat. It wasn't always easy. Bunga struggled with restraint, Fuli with patience, Ono with uncertainty. Yet through it all, Kion never commanded them as a king commands soldiers. He listened to them as a leader listens to equals. One night, long after the kingdom slept, Kion walked alone across the plains. He stopped where his journey had once nearly ended, where doubt had almost broken him. The stars shimmered above, endless and watching. "I'm still learning," he said softly, unsure who he was speaking to. The wind answered. Kion realized then that becoming king was not a destination. It was a vow renewed every day, to choose balance over power, compassion over pride, courage over fear. The roar of the elders still lived within him, but it no longer defined him. His choices did far away beyond known lands. Bosses watched the Pride Lands with new interest. A king who ruled with wisdom instead of domination was rare, dangerous, inspiring. Stories began to travel, carried by birds, whispered by travelers. Of a lion who ended wars without fighting. Of a king who listened to the weakest voice in the room. Of a roar that was feared not because it destroyed, but because it restrained. Kion returned to Pride Rock as the first light of morning touched the horizon. The Pride Lands stretched before him, alive, imperfect, worth protecting. He stood tall, no longer the young leader wondering if he was enough. He was. And as the sun rose higher, illuminating the circle of life in all its fragile beauty, King Kion prepared to face a future that would test him again and again, as a warrior, not as a cub in training, paired as a king whose greatest strength would always be the heart that guided his roar.